You ready?
Yeah. Welcome back to the Mutual Minds podcast with Isabel and Tamera. This is our third episode. And before we get started, let's talk about our peak and pit of this week.
Oh my God, there has been so much that has gone on in this week, guys. For me, I would say my peak of this week is definitely the Dominic Fike concert. We went yesterday, and it was literally the most amazing thing I've seen in a long time. He just had such good stage presence, and the whole show was amazing. Um, My pit is probably dealing with the check engine light on our car is on, and it has been on for like a week and a half, and it has just been so stressful because obviously we just moved here, and it's just like it's so much money for something that could just be fixed so easily, and it's just like a reoccurring thing that's just so frustrating. So I would say that that is definitely my pit. What about you?
My peak, I feel like I have to say, was also the Dominic Fike
Really?
concert. I feel like that was the most,
That's
obviously, the
fun.
most eventful thing we did this week.
Yeah,
I will say we went to this new place in Austin called Bufalina.
that was really good.
The
I forgot
pizza
that was this week.
was so good. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
it was on Sunday, but
It was
to
really
me,
good.
Sunday is the start of the week. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
Highly recommend if you guys are ever in Austin traveling or just moved here, Bufalina.
It was so
It was
freaking good.
amazing, and just like the vibe in there was so cute.
I have to say my pit, obviously, the car situation has been very overwhelming, just like figuring it out. And then, like, when you book with like a dealership, it always, the appointments are so far out. So, like, we still are waiting to like even get it looked at. But I'll say for my pit, to make it different than yours, that my mom ordered me an air fryer for my birthday, which
Which is
my
very
birthday was
exciting.
like 3 weeks ago at this point, and it like said it got lost in the mail, and then yesterday it said it was delivered, but it never was delivered. I was like waiting at home all day for it. So I don't know where it is, and it's not like I'm in a rush or like I need it, but we're so excited to like use one because we've
We're
never had
excited,
one.
but it's also just like unsettling when it says like it was delivered and it just is not here. You don't know if someone stole it or it just got lost. Like that happens, but it's just like, oh, I would love an air fryer.
Yeah, and I hate that my mom is like having to like reorder it and
Yeah,
like report
that
it missing
sucks.
or whatever. But yeah, that's not even that big of a pit, but that is just like another random thing that's been happening this week.
This week, we wanted to talk to you guys about social media and just kind of want to start it out just with like, how did you get into social media? Like, what was like the beginning of your era of all of this? Because we kind of like grew up with social media, but we still were like before what it is now. Like when I see kids with like cell phones and like iPhones and laptops now, right now, it's like so terrifying to me.
Yeah.
But like we were like Tamagotchi world, like iPod Touch world. Like, how did you like get into like social media?
I feel like when Instagram came out, even though Facebook was first and I was all in that, and MySpace, I was all like,
I didn't have MySpace.
really?
No.
It was so fun. But I feel like Instagram was like the pivotal moment where like social media
Yeah.
really became a thing. Like, I just remember like everyone would be like, oh, do you have Instagram? Same with Snapchat. That was a big era.
I never got into Snapchat. That just felt like such a weird app to me. But all
But-
my friends loved it.
But then I feel like YouTube was like another pivotal switch where like people started to show their lives like more in depth and stuff. But like YouTube used to just be freaking music videos,
Yeah.
and like that
And, like,
was like
lyrics.
so fun. I
Isn't
loved
that so crazy? It was literally just like lyrics that I would just look up like lyrics for songs or like music videos that were just in like 360p. Like it was just like all
Yeah.
like graded.
I don't really know. I can't remember like YouTubers that I like loved right away. I mean, in like the queer community, I was a huge like Cami
Yeah.
person. Like we loved Damo and Chrissy, and I feel like no one talks about Damo and
Yeah.
Chrissy.
That was
But-
before everyone's time.
That was like I know,
And that
but
was like
people
the
know.
first like queer couple like publicly posting
Yeah.
their life, which was crazy.
Because people know Cammy and Shannon, and like
Yeah.
they were at the same time as Damo and Chrissy. We were like, wow, like this is a couple that like looks like us and is like us when we were still figuring out our sexuality.
Yeah.
But yeah, YouTube, I think has both been in both of our lives for a long time, and I just remember when we were long distance, like we wanted to like capture our little memories and stuff. So we would do little vlogs whenever we were together, and that was like our fun. Like we were
Yeah.
posting like these vlogs, and we were having so much fun with it. We always have loved it.
Yeah.
And we also met on social media, so it's just like a very prevalent topic in our relationship.
Yeah, for me, I was like huge on YouTube. Like I was obsessed with the music videos. I loved watching reaction videos. I loved Andrea Russet. I feel like everyone had a phase with her.
Yes.
There was like I loved like Cimarelli, like all these like it would just be so random. It'd be like reaction videos and like Cimarelli and like Ryan Beatty back in the day. And like I used to watch like Troye Sivan when he was like 10 years
Yes.
old on YouTube. And then it would go to like the MagCon people, and then it would go to like covers, but then it would go to like vlogs. Like Andrea did just such random vlogs of I would just like sit there watching her do her homework and like watching her play with her dog in the backyard in like
Yeah.
Indiana.
No,
Like
that one era where it was like a mix of like YouTubers versus like Tumblr, like Gen
Yes.
X Pen,
oh my
Andrea
god,
Russet, like
Jenna Marbles.
all of them. Like
Did
that
you
was
watch
good.
Jenna Marbles?
Yes.
Yeah.
I loved Jenna Marbles. I
There was
know
just
there's
so
a lot of
much.
controversy, but the humor in the
Just
back in the day was like less, yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously like Demo Chrissy, Cammy and Shannon. I loved Savannah and Jared.
Oh yes.
I'm so embarrassed. But
No, I think everybody loved them.
I just literally would just like watch them cuddle for hours.
Me
And I was just like, what am I doing?
There was
But
a point in like middle school when I would like look up couples cuddling, couples
Yes.
kissing.
yes,
Like I just
just like the Tumblr vibes. It was just
so
the era.
cute.
But yeah, I guess like since we both grew up on social media, that's just kind of how this all came about. And I just felt like it felt very natural to us. Like obviously we were long distance, as most of you guys know. And I feel like we were just already in social media. So like here and there we would do vlogs, like you said. And whenever you would come to see me, we would try to do like a vlog here and there, but we didn't really like take it seriously until COVID.
Yeah, COVID was like
Yeah.
when we really started to like post, and not with the intent of like making this our job. We just like, I think all of like the world was just bored, like because
So
everything
bored.
was shut down. So
Yeah.
that's when TikTok just like bloomed, and
Yeah.
then everyone just wanted to participate in the different trends, and it was like cool to like participate. And that's what we did, was just do like, we did trends, and then we had like one video go viral. It was the most random video, and
So
still is.
random.
Whenever we like put
Has
effort,
nothing to do with us being a couple or anything. It was
no,
just
I
so
swear when we put effort into a video, it like gets like 200
Horrible.
views, and then when we post just like something completely random, it has like 1 million.
Yeah, we just started doing that. Our YouTube used to be my account. I had like a reaction video cover vibe going. And then there was one day where we were like, well, maybe we should change it into like Isabel and Tamera and like make it a couples channel. And I didn't know where it would take us and what would happen with it. And I didn't even think that we would even continue it. But it's been like 6 years of us like posting on that channel. And now you guys are able to watch these on here. And it's really cool to just see like now we have all of this content as like memories for us, which is really special.
Yeah.
And I think that's like why we continue to keep going, just because there's just so many memories that we can look back at and we could just be like, oh, like we went to Florida. Like I really miss like, I don't remember what that was like. And you just have a whole 14-minute video of like
Yeah.
everything that you experienced.
I think that's the cool thing about YouTube is like we have so many of our memories just compiled there, and like every little detail of the trip or whatever it was. I love YouTube for that. Like we don't make any money on YouTube. Like
No.
that's still something that we just post on here because we just genuinely want to document our life and
Yeah.
share it with everybody. But I love YouTube. I love that it's like the long form content, and I feel like our generation's like attention span has gotten horrible.
It's terrifying.
And that's why TikTok is kind of thriving, because it's all short videos.
Yeah.
But I love a good YouTube video every now and then.
Yeah. So then, like, when we started turning this into like a job, I would say TikTok probably was the thing to take us kind of like to the next step, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, like we had our
Instagram was like doing all right, but I feel like it was TikTok that kind of motivated us to be like, okay, maybe this could be a job for us.
Yeah, I think like there has always been like influencers like for a long time, but I feel like after TikTok, it was like a booming industry for like companies to be putting money into influencers. And I think, but it's so funny because we still like our first few brand deals ever were actually on Instagram, even though we have way less followers.
Oh my God.
But I think like Instagram followers go like a long way because it's a harder app to build up on. But TikTok, like if you are just like posting a bunch of times a day, like it's like not as difficult to get followers, you know? But yeah, TikTok was like our thing. We're like, I think when we moved to New York, that's kind of when things just changed for us, because we were posting about finally living together and like being on our own.
Do you remember what our following was?
I
know we
think
had like 5,000 on something, but I don't remember if it was Instagram or TikTok.
we had 5,000 on our Instagram when we moved to New York. We now are about to hit
That's
20K,
crazy.
which is so crazy. And then on TikTok, we had 15K when we moved to New York. Because I remember we went to Niagara Falls right before. And we hit 15K when we were in Niagara Falls, and we were like, oh my God,
That's
like
insane.
this is it for us.
Well, that was like a lot. It's a lot of people. Like, I think there's like this misconception of like, it's like making it, or like you are like up here or you're like below everybody else. But like when you step back and think about 15,000 people standing in front of you, you would be so terrified.
No, yeah.
So it's like, I think like for us, like we want to get into like the pros and cons of everything, but I will say like one of the cons I think that social media has caused us especially to experience is the fact that like numbers mean so much, especially when you're trying to turn this into a job. I think obviously your whole job is based on analytics. That's literally how you get paid. So it's important to care about your analytics while also having a good time. But I do think that choosing this as a job kind of takes the fun away, because when something doesn't do well, it's like, okay, at least I liked the video, but it's like, well, that video is not going to make you money to
it's
pay your
become
rent.
like difficult to navigate that, because we did genuinely start this for fun. And I feel like because people are realizing obviously how privileged of a job this is, people are like purposely seeking out to make this a job. And of course in some ways we are, because when we started this, like we were both working in like retail jobs where like our hours were just all over the place, and there was a lot of nights where we couldn't be together, and like it just feels like you're really like wasting your life away a little bit, because you aren't able to be with the people you love and like do the things you want to do because you're working for a company for barely any money. So of course people are chasing after it. Like it's very, I feel like very valid to want this as a job. It is a difficult job, like especially because we just moved out of New York and we're doing this full time now. We've realized like how much harder it is now, because we have like this sort of pressure. And like it's so crazy because when we were working in New York, we were still posting every day, but like it was like because we had like limited time in the day, it was like, okay, we have to come home and we have to make some sort of video to post. And like now that we're home all the time, we're like, okay, we have so much time. And there's not as much pressure, I guess, to make a video, because you don't have like time of your day taken out from you.
But at the same time, there is so much pressure because you have so much time and you chose to do this as a job. So it's like, if you don't do like 500 videos a day, now your failure is on you.
Yeah.
while also having so much time, so you can do whatever you want. But it's like you have to like strategize how you're using your time and like what is supposed to matter more. And I think that's what we've been struggling with lately. Is just like, okay, I have this time. This is all I've ever wanted. How do I make this time worth it? And how do I make sure we're giving each other time, like separately outside of this, while also giving this job time because we chose to do this as a job. So if we are not making money, we cannot live here.
Yeah, this is making me think maybe we should like kind of go through like a run through of like what a day could look like as like a content
Yeah.
creator, because I feel like people think like, oh, just making like a TikTok video.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of behind the scenes of like a lot of the times we will pre-record videos so
Yes.
that if something comes up in the day, we're not like scrambling to find something
That
together.
has been so helpful for us, especially when we were like actually working a regular job. It was so helpful because if we were doing like a whole 8 hour shift for the day, we knew that we wouldn't feel good to post a vlog in the evening right after like working a hard day. So pre-recording, especially for TikTok, has been so helpful because then you could just post it on your lunch break and it's just up and it's done. It can go live later on. But yeah, that's been like the number one thing for us.
And even though we are doing this full time now, we even still will pre-record videos. Like if we do a vlog, we'll vlog like for a whole day or whatever, but we won't post it till the next day.
Yeah.
Because then if we wanted to do another vlog, you're always a day ahead so that if you don't feel like vlogging one day, you're not like behind.
Yeah.
And also it just gives us like an extra video to post with whatever we end up posting that day. Because on TikTok, I feel like nowadays posting multiple times in a day is very helpful for growing
helpful, yeah.
your account.
I think it's also important to engage with your following. I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that are like big creators that do not even speak to the people that are liking their stuff. And I just feel like, number one, that just like strategically doesn't even make any sense because the more times that you're engaging with someone, the better your video is going to do, the more that another brand is going to see that and be like, wow, they actually care about their people. But also just like simple gratitude. Like
Yeah.
you should be like commenting with other people that like actually watch your stuff and like care about you as a person. I think it's just like a basic necessity, like literally bare minimum to
Yeah,
just like
'cause-
talk with the people that support you.
Yeah, because your followers are essentially the reason that you're literally getting
Yeah.
paid and like living the life that you
Yeah.
are. So
But I've noticed a lot of creators don't do that. And I think that's been very important to us because even though we have such a small following, I do feel like we have a lot of core people that have been with us for a long time.
Yeah.
And we have the same people that are always in our lives. And now we like recognize names. And it means a lot to like have the same people like following us throughout this.
this is another thing that a lot of creators have to do in like their day is emailing brands to work
Oh
with
my
you.
God, admin work is like genuinely the worst.
But it's not that like emailing people is hard. It's like spending time like personalizing the email so that it sounds like you actually know about the brand. You say like what you like about their brand and how it like aligns with you. But I hate the idea that like we spend so much time writing out these emails and then the brand either doesn't respond or they say no. And then it's like, and of course you're going to get no's, like that's normal, but like something about this year for us has been like way lower than last year, and it's so weird because we have obviously more followers this year than ever. So that's been something really that we've been like struggling with is like
Yeah.
not getting deals, and obviously if you don't get deals you're not making money. So that's one of the cons is the inconsistency of your finances and your
Yeah.
income.
And I think that's like one of the most important things that you need to understand going into a career like this or just any entrepreneurship, anything that you're working for yourself. It's like when you make a jump to work for yourself, whatever happens is on you. Every success that you make is on you. It's because of you. Every failure you make is because of you. Like everything just like falls on you, and it's very stressful. It's stressful when you're doing good because you don't want to feel too good because it might not last. And then it's stressful when it does bad because it's like, oh, well, my parents wanted me to work a 9 to 5, or like I should have did this, or I should have did this, and now it's failing. And sometimes it can feel like, oh wow, like maybe I should have just listened to my family, or like I should have just like went to college or did this or did that and not put my all into something because it's not working out. And I think too, with social media, it has been so oversaturated lately that it's so hard to define success nowadays because
Yeah.
there's just so much happening that it's like you could have like 6 months of doing fantastic and you're just like going with it. It's like, okay, like I got this, like I've made it. And then the rest of the 6 months of the year, you just do horrible. But if you didn't save that money in the first 6 months that you got, now you have nothing to show for. And I think that we've experienced that this year because, like you said, it's been so low. And I kind of have an idea of what has happened, but I'm not going to go into that. But I do think it's really important to make sure that you're saving as much money as possible because one, it's just so inconsistent anyway, but also because you could be on a high, which we were in New York. And I think we thought that moving here, things would be easier. But I do think this has been a really difficult transition for us. And I feel like because this move was so expensive and we were already paying so much rent in New York, we lost a lot of money and a lot of like cushion. And I think that made it very difficult for us to now figure out, okay, what are we going to do? Because now we're kind of like scrambling.
Yeah. And another thing, though, we've realized is that a lot of creators are working, but they're either
Yeah.
just not talking about it, but then, like, you might, like, obviously, if they have, like, millions of followers, they're probably not working, but a lot of, like, specifically, like, queer creators, I feel like queer creators this year are struggling.
Yeah.
And again, we're not going to get into that, but
Yeah.
I do see like a lot of queer people not really posting many brand deals this year.
Yeah.
And
It's unfortunate
it is unfortunate, and
because
it
that's
just
just who
shows
you
like
are.
yeah, and it just shows like again like the layers like in this country of like I don't know. We're not gonna get into it,
Well,
but
I think you should.
well, I definitely think like being a creator as like a black or queer person is just much different than being like a white cisgendered person.
It is.
I feel like I see like girlies that I follow that are like straight and white get deals all the time, and when you're like in this, you like think a lot about this stuff because it is your job, and so I'm just like, I feel like these girls are actually getting these emails and don't even have to do the work of like trying to email and
Yeah.
like basically begging companies to work with you, but
Yeah.
like we are like sending these emails and like not getting things, not hearing back, and it gets kind of like discouraging to
Yeah.
like, at least for me, I feel like I've been very discouraged to keep going, so I'm just like, if I'm not making money, like I'm passionate about this job, but like I also have to eat and like
Yeah.
pay rent to like live. So I get very discouraged and I'm like, okay, well like this is just frustrating. Like this isn't fun because even if I'm putting out fun videos, I can't live off of it. But I think we've realized by just like going in other creators' lives and talking with other creators that a lot of like specifically like queer and like people of color creators are like working, like whether they have like a part-time barista job or a full-time job, like a lot of people are actually working. So that's something that we've been kind of like looking at, is like adding some type of job for income on the side
Yeah.
so that we can make this work because this is our passion.
And I think a lot of people in general that are working for themselves are doing like 12 different jobs. But I think
Yeah.
there's something strange about being a creator where people feel this sense of like gatekeeping of like how they like have the house and how they have the like nice apartment, and like they say that they're full time, but like there's something more to it. It's like, yes, I'm full time creator, but I also do 7 other things outside of when I'm on my TikTok. And I think a lot of people are getting a misconception of what this person is actually doing. I think there's a select few people that are lucky enough to just post one TikTok and that is going to pay for their rent for the month. But then there's other people that are saying that this is my full-time job, but I'm also doing DoorDash, I'm doing Instacart, I'm working for other brands, and I'm doing UGC, and I'm doing, like, even though those are like fun things, like that's a job.
Yeah.
That's like
That's not just
part-time
doing.
work that you're doing that you probably don't want to be doing, and that's why you're not saying that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's totally fine. I just definitely wish that there was more
Like transparency.
transparency of like, this is what I'm doing. If we're going to talk about that, I think there used to be a time where no one talked about money. No one talked
Yeah.
about what your job is. You just were a person. It's just like, it's less about the job. It's more about like, what do you like to do with your time? But now everybody is talking about like, oh, how much do you make? How much is your salary? What do you do? Is this all you do for your day? Or do you also have a second job? Or like, I just feel like that's already so personal. So if you are going to be that personal, I think it's good to be 100% transparent, just because like a lot of people are now quitting their jobs that are like going into debt, and they think that everyone is just only doing social media, but they're not getting the full photo.
Which that kind of goes into like how this job and how just social media in general, even if you're not doing this as your job, like can affect your mental health and make you compare yourself to people. And I like often have to take like breaks or like
Yeah.
maybe I'll post because we also are trying in the midst of like doing this full time. We're also trying to like post separately on our accounts because
Yeah.
that's also could be a form of income down the road,
Yeah.
and like that would help us, you know, continue to do this full time. So, but I feel like on my account at least, like I end up comparing myself to people because I'm like, they're already doing this full time, and like technically I'm doing this full time. Like, but I
Yeah.
don't feel like I am because I'm not seeing like the results that some people are, and I feel like I often compare.
But I also think that's interesting because you don't know what their results are. Because
Very
you
true.
also have the nice apartment, you just moved across the country, and you are doing this full time. And other people might be looking at you like, oh my God, her apartment is so beautiful. She just moved across the country. She's like doing this full time. She doesn't have to work a 9 to 5. Like she probably has so much money. But it's like all like a perception thing. Because
Yeah.
like a lot of people used to think that like you were having just so much fun in New York, but you were literally crippling inside.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting to like look at other people, like even the big people, like the Alex Earls and like all those people, like thinking that like, oh, they just have it all together. But it's like, you also don't know. Like they could be in debt. They could have things going on. Like, yes, they like secured the apartment, but it's like, we just don't really have any idea of like what is
Yeah, no, it's so
happening
true.
behind. Like
Yeah.
even though they do have like the followers and like the big number is huge and the analytics are big, but it's like outside of that we just don't even know.
Yeah.
'Cause I think a lot of people thought that we were just like, people think that like we're like balling out.
When
Like
we
we
left,
had part-time jobs in New York and everyone was just like, oh, why do you guys like work here? Like I follow you and like you guys
Yeah,
have
we-
so many followers, and I'm like, because I can't live in Manhattan in the Upper East Side without having a job.
yeah, like when we were like, so towards the end of our time in New York, we both worked at the same store
Yeah.
doing Instacart, and we were like in store, so we didn't have to like leave the store or whatever. And there was like a coworker we worked with, and when we told her like we were like moving to Austin, she was like, "Oh my God, like you guys are like buying a house?" And we were like, like
I wish.
I wish we could afford to buy a house, but
No.
like I do think a lot of people probably of course think the same
Mm-hmm.
thing how I think of other people. But I think it stems from like the people who are open and honest,
Yeah.
or I guess so I think they're being open and honest and they're like, I'm doing this full time, I make 6 figures a month, and like they'll have like less followers than us. So
Yeah.
then I just assume anyone who obviously has more followers than them is well off. But you just don't know. Like I think a lot of creators are in debt, trying to like keep up with like the trends and like just how rapid this career is changing.
But now there's so many different things now with like UGC now is a huge thing, and a lot of UGC creators are making more than people with regular followers who have literally just made an account like yesterday are
Yeah.
can make more because it's not about your following, it's just about the videos that you can create. So if you have a creative mind at all, you literally could be making 5 figures, 6 figures, whatever. That's a whole different thing. But then it also goes into like, there's things like Aspire or like Reach and like the new thing that we just started and like the creativity beta program. Like there's just so many little things now that like if you are pushing videos out like every single day, like multiple times a day, you technically could make more than someone that has so many more followers than you. It's just a matter of like consistency, which is like the biggest
Yeah.
thing.
I think it's just weird because like when we started social media, like we kind of started our Instagram in 2019 before
Yeah.
COVID happened. We just weren't really like serious. It was just to like post our little cute pictures and stuff. But like even then, it was like you couldn't find information on how to do this full time. Like I would
Yeah.
find some articles or like blog posts from like different girlies, but like no one was as open as they are now. So I
Yeah.
think it's like just way easier to compare yourself to people because people are being open about this career. And so I think when you're doing this too, you're like, oh, well, I'm not making that or seeing that or doing that or experiencing the same life as you. And so then it's like you kind of easily compare yourself. And I feel
Yeah.
like even if you don't do this as a job, you just see way too many people's lives at
It's a
once.
lot. It's a lot of consumption all at once.
There was a point where I think like in New York where we didn't know we were moving yet, and so I was just struggling with like just everything. Like I was just not in a good place, and like if I just saw like one video on my like For You page of someone in like a beautiful apartment, like or traveling in Greece or something, like I would just like immediately get so sad because I was
Yeah.
just like I'm not living like this bougie lifestyle that feels like free and like limitless. Like I felt so trapped where I was, but like nobody on like Instagram that follows me would think that
Yeah.
at all because
And
I
I,
was
oh,
playing
sorry,
it
go ahead.
off as like, oh, I'm loving my life because I tried to obviously be grateful and I tried to show the moments that I was having a good time because why would I want to share, me crying at night? Yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say that I feel like it's so important. Like, obviously, everybody now has a phone, whether you have an iPhone, an Android, whatever, you have something where you can access all of this information. And I think our generation has just like completely just like flown out the window. And I think it's so important to like, it's so hard. Like, I think it's easier said than done, but I do think it's so important if everybody can just like step back for a second and just like recognize that you are where you're supposed to be in life. And I'm like a firm believer of that. And I think with social media, it's so hard because you are watching people that are 16, 17 buying houses in Los Angeles and are doing the move to LA and like are
Yeah.
getting all these modeling gigs and getting all this stuff and like meeting their favorite producer. And they're just like everything is happening. And then other people do that and they end up living in their car or
Yeah.
like things aren't the same way, but it's like, oh, I just saw this person do it and they told me their whole life story and then I tried and now I'm homeless. And then it just like it's so hard because you're getting so much information and you're trying to use that as a tool to like become successful yourself, but sometimes it doesn't work for other people. And a lot of people don't tell you maybe there was something that they did that they didn't include in their story.
Yeah.
And I think it's just important to just recognize that like your time is going to come. And for some people, we have realized that a lot of our friends are like in their 30s or higher that are doing
Yes, our
this. And
creator
we
friends.
are like 25, 26, and we're like struggling trying to find ourselves or trying to figure out if we should quit our jobs or like continue or like whatever. But like there's a lot of people that are way older than us that are just now starting. And I think that that's a huge thing to recognize, is that like your age is just, it literally is just a number. Like you have so much time in your life to figure out what you want to do. And I think it's very admirable for people to quit their jobs and like chase their dreams and chase what they want. But I also think it's just as admirable to go to college and try different things, try different majors, and figure out what you want to do. So then you have something to fall back on if you did want to try this later. And I think that's been very important to us because you've been wanting to go back to school. You have your associates, which is fantastic, and I have my bachelor's. And when we're now in a situation like this, it's like we're stressed out, but we have something to fall back on, which I think is important because a lot of people don't have that, because a lot of people are buying houses in LA at 16, but they just graduated high school.
Yeah.
There's nothing that they can go back on.
Yeah, it's like really crazy.
Yeah.
And just like you just didn't see these kind of things like 10 years ago, like 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds like buying houses and moving to Los Angeles. Like
It's crazy.
and I'm not saying it's necessarily a good thing either, even though it sounds like dreamy and like they're lucky to be able to afford a house that young, but there's a lot of negative that comes with that too.
That just reminded me too, like people like Emma Chamberlain, for example. Like she started this so young and she's already feels burnt out at like 21. And it's
Yeah.
just so crazy that she's done all of this work so early in her career and in her early 20s that she's already burnt out and doesn't know what she wants to do with her life.
Yeah.
And it's like she made the money, she got the house, she got everything, but it's like now I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. And it's just crazy that like these kids now are like hustling on like social media and like doing all these things and starting their own careers, and by the time they're even 25 they want to retire and just don't even want to continue doing anything.
I know, it's really scary.
Yeah.
And just so crazy how much social media has evolved in the past like just 3 years.
The pros of social media, though, there are a lot. As much as there's cons, there are so many things that I think are fantastic about social media. I think are fantastic about doing this as a job. Give me like three to four things that you think are good.
First one that comes to mind is that I am like a true homebody. Like I love being at home, and that can be a negative thing because now that we live in Austin and we don't have like the events and stuff that New York brought us, I have probably been at home
Different.
a lot, like way too much. But I also just feel so comfortable at my home because in New York I didn't feel comfortable in my home necessarily. It didn't really feel super homey, and then New York just doesn't really feel homey to me as a city. Like it was fun, but like I never really felt like I was like at peace and just relaxed there.
Yeah.
So I love that I can be home. I love that like this year, like it probably looks like we do a lot of things and like travel a lot, but like a lot of our traveling is like for family or family trips, which is amazing and we're grateful for that. But see, even that, like 10 years ago, like as much as we've been traveling, I would be like, oh my God, like I'm so cool. Like I went to this many places, but like
I think you just grow up and it's like everyone's in Europe. So like you're going to Tampa 5 times in a year, but it's like you're not in Europe. Like you need to go to Italy and like go to all these places, but it's like a trip is a trip. Like there's a lot of people that can't even like get time off of work.
It's so horrible because like that's something that has just skewed my mind on like life is like, okay, like I'm going to Tampa again. Like that's
like, oh,
fun,
great.
but like whatever, you know. This person, Emily, Joe Schmo, as Isabel would say, is in Turks and Caicos and then is in Greece. And so then it's just like,
you just never feel like you're enough, or you never feel like you can catch up to these people because it's like, then you go to Europe, but it's like, they already went here like 500 times. So then it's like, oh, okay, well, I should have went when they all were going for the first time.
Yeah, no, and like I grew up like very poor, like single mom, dad wasn't in the picture, like food stamps, like everything. And so seeing me go to Florida twice a year or once a year, like I would have been like, wow, like this is the life, like we're living the life.
Isn't that so
It's so
crazy?
scary because like now that I'm an adult and now that social media is so normal and it's so normal to see other people's lives so much, I'm like, okay, well this trip just isn't gonna be as cool as going to like Turkey next week, you know, like
Yeah.
it's crazy. But again, one of the pros is that you have like unlimited like time off. So like, and I don't mean time off to stop creating content, but like we were just in Florida and we actually could go for like the full 10 days that Isabel's family was there because we didn't have
She
anywhere
was
to be.
amazing.
You can work from everywhere. And then like Isabel's mom's visiting us next month and like we don't have to ask off.
Yeah.
Like we just have off or like you work your job around your schedule. And like that is so cool and I think that's something we're struggling with because as we're looking at like maybe picking up another job, we're like, well, dang, and like now, like if your mom comes, I don't know if I can hang out with you guys. But that's such a normal like struggle to have is
Yeah.
to not be able to do whatever you want to, and that's very normal. So it really is like a amazing thing to have is that much
Yeah.
time.
I think it's been such a whirlwind. I think this year has really, I feel like I thought last year was like a year of learning and experiencing a lot of things, but I feel like this year has really tested me at least. And I feel like I have grown so much literally in these like 4 months than I have like almost ever in my life or equal to our last year in New York. And I feel like it definitely has been difficult because this job gives you so much time, like you said, and just being able to spend all these hours together and just like sitting on the couch and laughing, watching TikToks, or like going on a walk, or like going to the Barbie movie. Like we had so much fun, and it just feels so nice because it's like, oh, I don't have work today, or the next day, or the next day, or the next, and like every day feels like a weekend. And there's like a beauty in that, especially when you're like still young in love and like having this much time together. Because I do think that now that we are starting to look at other jobs to just like add some extra money to this, it's like, wow, okay, so like we can't do retail because then we're never going to be together because you don't have a weekend. You just work every day. And it's like, well, if I work nights, then I can't sleep with you. But then if I work this job, like a 9 to 5 in an office, I don't want to be depressed. It just like, there's so many different layers to it that you have to like wean around. And I think another big thing is that we're both neurodivergent.
Yeah,
And I
at
don't even think
least
we've
we're
ever
pretty
talked
sure.
about that. And for me, I have a learning disability. So for me, there's a lot of jobs that are really difficult for me to do. And then for you, you have a lot of stuff that you're dealing with. And there's a lot of things that like a certain job would not be good for you to do. So then since we're like weaning around different jobs, but we're also weaning around like scheduling, it just becomes so difficult to like figure out, okay, like what should I do, like where do I fit in. And I think that that is a whole different thing because there's a lot of people that are, especially women, that are like discovering that they do have autism like later on in life, and they're like, oh my god, like I don't know if I could work this certain job. But then it's like you have the older generation telling you like, oh, you guys are just too lazy and don't want to work. But being neurodivergent, it's really hard to like find a job find a job that's going to fit you and your needs and your accommodations. And I think that's also why a lot of people end up going into the creative space and they want to do like social media for a job. And I think that that's amazing, but I also think it's so hard because then it becomes oversaturated, and then the people that are starting now feel like they're never going to make it because there's just so many people doing this
Yeah.
now. And then it's like all these people that are better off doing creative jobs now, it's like they feel like they don't have a choice, and I feel like that's really sad.
Yeah.
And it sucks, and I think that's like something that we're struggling with. So I do think that like having the time and the freedom is like the biggest thing that I feel like any influencer would tell you is like the main reason of why they're doing this. Like no matter what, at the end of the day, like being able to see your family, being able to spend time with your significant other, your dog, whatever you have, it's just so healing
Yeah.
to like spend this time and just like be able to breathe.
We've been here before. Like there was a point in New York where like Isabel's working 2 jobs and we just actually never saw each other, and like that made creating content hard, and so we just don't want to get jobs that will get in the way of this because we want to put our dreams first, and I feel like everyone should be putting their passions and their dreams first.
Well, that, but then it's also like almost feels like we're long distance again. And I think we like value our time together so much, maybe too much. I don't know what is considered too much, but that's like one of the most important things to us is making sure that if we're working, that we have at least somewhat similar hours so that at least if we can't see each other at all through the week, at least we could spend 2 days on the weekend together.
Yeah.
But it's like if we can't even have that, it like literally feels like you live in Nebraska again.
Well, now
Which is
it's
dramatic,
getting,
but
this is becoming a therapy session because
I think that's good.
genuinely the past like 3 weeks, this is all we've been talking about, and
Yeah.
it's honestly kind of gotten in the way of us creating content and being present in what we
Yeah.
are doing, because we've just been so like, what should we do?
Yeah.
If we get jobs, this is gonna happen. If we get jobs, this is gonna happen, and whatever. And there's also like, not like pressure really, but like a slight bit more pressure because we do have a manager now. So us working would also interfere with us having like meetings with her.
100%.
And
And it just takes away from your mind and your creative mind if you're so focused on like being yelled at all day at work, and then it's like, okay, well, you need to still come home and do more admin work. Like you could be an administrative assistant doing admin work all day, and then it's like, okay, well, I have to continue to do that when I get home. Like it doesn't end. And I
Yeah.
think it's important to make sure that both of those jobs are not interfering with each other. But I do think it's just like so many people in the world right now are struggling with like trying to find what their calling is, whether it is like being a content creator, a manager, a photographer, or going back to school or whatever. And I think there's just been such a pull for everyone to quit their jobs and to just go straight into this, and then they just don't know what to do. And I think a lot of people are asking themselves the same questions that we are.
Yeah.
Of just like, okay, like you need to work and do something to make money so that you can have an apartment and live in a nice area and do all these things, but it's like, how are you going to get that money? So then I need to work, but I don't want my weekends stripped from me. I want to actually have 2 days to myself, but it's also like 2 days to yourself is horrible.
Yeah.
It's like I've always thought that that's just like terrible that Americans can only get 2 days in a week to yourself, and then before you know it, it's just back to Monday.
Yeah. Like I don't want to be like trying to get through 5 days of the week
Yes.
to enjoy 2 days of the week. Like that's just
And
like
it goes so fast.
such a sad reality. And
Yeah.
like I think that's another part of like, this is a privileged job, and like we've been in
100%.
it for the last 3 months full time, 4 months now. So like
It's just a long time.
the thought of like going back into like just
That world.
that world feels
Depressing.
depressing, and that's such a privileged thing
Yeah.
to say, because the
It
fact
is.
that we've even been doing this for 4 months and not
is.
working a real job is like a blessing, and we're so great. But that's the thing, is like we're completely grateful for it. Like we don't take this for granted at all.
Absolutely not.
Like we have been just genuinely soaking up this, because we do know that nothing in life, not even just social media, but nothing in life is promised, and like you just really can't take anything for granted. So like these moments at home, like we're fully just soaking them in and like enjoying
Yeah.
each other and like trying to get out and explore our new city and stuff like that. Like we are not taking it for granted, because we know that at some point this could just all end anyway. But it does feel like sad, of course, to
Yeah.
like think about not having this anymore.
Do you still feel like this is your dream job, or do you wish you never started it as like a monetary gain in any way and you just always did it for fun?
Well, I mean, obviously it did start out as fun. I feel
Yeah.
like this is my dream job. Like, I feel like this is a lot of people's dream job. And never mind, let me not get into that. But I was just gonna say, like, I just saw like a comment today on a reel, and like, comments this year have completely
Yeah.
just progressed so hatefully. Like, I will see, like, I saw someone baking, and someone was like, "Your baking videos suck. Why would you make this?" And I'm like,
That's
she's
horrible.
literally baking. Like,
Yeah.
I like our content, like being queer, it's always gonna be like a problem to
Mm-hmm.
somebody out there. So like the comments we get are hateful, and I don't
And people have just gotten like outrightly rude
yeah,
about everything. Like
everything.
you will find a problem with absolutely any type of content. It's too long, it's too short, you look too tan, you're doing this wrong. Why are you talking about this? Nobody cares about your mental health. This is you shouldn't be here. Like it's like actually just like so awful and a lot of people have become desensitized to it and it's scary.
Yeah, because
It's
like
horrible.
we honestly we don't get that many hate comments. Like maybe if we talk about being like a lesbian couple, we
Yeah.
will. But like from day to day, like our videos don't really get that many. But like I feel like the hate
Heaviness.
just from watching other people's videos. Like today, I was watching another couple. Like it was a reel that just popped up, and like they were just like saying like something they do that helps their relationship, and someone was just like the fact that like you set the camera up to get the video. But I'm just
Just
like
like that's
social
exactly what
media
their job
social
is.
media is entertainment. Like you're watching the video for
It's no
entertainment.
different than setting up a production for a
Because
movie
if
and
somebody
saying a line from a script.
no, literally, because if I just thought about that in the moment and like filmed to the ground, it's not gonna relate to what the words are saying. Like that, it is literally that's why it's a content creator. You're
Oh
creating
my
a
god.
video to match what you're trying to
Yeah.
say, and the comments just blow my mind recently. Like it's so frustrating, and even if it's not on my video, you just feel like the frustration, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, what do people not understand about like this? And like even if you don't understand something, why do you have to comment on it?
A
Like
hundred
just
percent.
if I see a video that I'm like that was so cringy or annoying, I'm not taking the time out to comment on it. I'm just scrolling.
Yeah.
So this is still my dream job, but there's just a lot that has changed in recent years that have
Yeah.
like taken the fun out of it, I think. And a lot of it is like the comments, and also just kind of feeling like the money part has changed. Like I feel like a few years ago, like you would just get emails and brands would be like, yeah, like we want to get you on this, we want to work with you. But now I feel like so many people are getting into it, rightfully so, because corporate America is not a fun place to be. But it just like has changed a lot, and having to like kind of accept that and like take it for what it is
Yeah.
has just changed what it's like to do this as a job. But I still wouldn't trade this for anything else because I love being with you and like getting to be with you every day. And like when we do get to travel, like that is such a privilege that we can just pick up and go.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, it is still my dream job.
I would say too, it is my dream job, but I definitely agree with literally everything you said. I feel like the money aspect has changed so much and like that's like the least important thing to us. Like we genuinely enjoy creating content just to share our story, and for the feedback that we get from people is like so inspiring to us. But the fact that we did choose to like come here without anything lined up, the money is obviously important. But I think what's even more discouraging to me is the fact that like I feel like a lot of brands kind of like fake love you almost. It's like the fake love during like June where like
Oh,
everyone
yeah.
comes out of the woodworks. It's like, oh my God, like you guys are so cute. Like I would really love to like work with you. But it's like you like can look up their name and they have done absolutely nothing for anybody in the LGBTQ community. Like there's just absolutely no article, nothing. There are certain people that have been amazing throughout all the years of like donating to people. But there's like a lot of brands that it's just like do you actually want to work with me, or do you actually just want like promotion or like something like that? And I think it's like a double-edged sword, because I think a lot of creators know that, but it's also like that is the only time you are being like appreciated as a person,
Or just
and
making
you need to make money
the
for your
money
rent.
to continue to do your job.
And that's sad.
It is sad, and that's something that frustrates me so much every day.
Yeah.
And I try not to let it like take over my mind, because I don't want it to affect how I view the job, because I do want to still do
Yeah.
this. But it is so frustrating to like.
Because you want to work with brands that you like, but it's like most of the brands that you like probably don't like us as people.
I think the biggest thing though is just like being seen
Yes.
outside of being queer,
100%.
because like I understand, like I appreciate, like, if you're gonna do a pride campaign, at least use queer people and pay queer
Yeah.
people to like promote the products. That makes sense. But like, I'm not just a queer person. Like, we're still a couple every other month of the year. So like,
Yes.
I just feel like it's so unfair that like we don't get as much work around the year unless it's June. And like
100%.
other people, I don't want to like compare us, but I know that a lot of people, you see like they're getting brand deals like 5 a month or something, and like we,
It's discouraging.
yeah, it's discouraging.
Yeah.
But I try not to think about it too much, because then I get very negative and stuff. But it is a big problem in this field. So if you're looking to do this, that's something that I feel like you just kind of have to keep in mind.
100%. And that's not even just in social media. That's like
That's every job.
just being a woman
Yeah.
in general. Obviously, everyone, every woman in a job in America is.
And then being
like,
black and queer on top of it.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a problem in every field, but it's definitely been very prevalent this year in at least the queer community. I think it's important, like I said earlier, to just try to be in your own bubble and to look at these people and be like, oh my God, that's so cool, but to not internalize it as in that you're behind in any way, because there's been so many people that have had their mark in like Vine days that were like huge, and now we're just working a regular job, maybe because they wanted to, but there's a lot of people that I'm sure could have amounted to so much more, but it just didn't cross over, because once Vine was over, it was just done. And some people have still made it to this day, and some people haven't.
yeah.
And I think it's just important to just recognize that, like, you just don't know what's going on in another person's life. Like we stated, like, a lot of people think that we're rich and we're well off and we have all this stuff, and like maybe that's how we're coming off, but I feel like that's not at all. I feel like we're very open and honest about everything that we've been doing and things that we struggle with, because I feel like a lot of people are not honest. And I think it's important to like not steer people into quitting their jobs or not quitting their jobs, or steering people into doing anything, because I think your life should just be yours, and I don't think anybody should be telling you to quit your job or to keep your job. I think you need to do what feels right in your life at that point in time, and I don't think that anyone should be teaching you or telling you that you should be doing something, because everyone's in a different spot in life.
Yeah.
And I think there's just too much of like how to get out of 200 jail and like how to like become a content creator in the next 10 days. Like there's just so much stuff, and then it's like you think that these people are like geniuses, and like you like follow everything that they do, and then the 10 days you are not a content creator. And then it's like, well, I listened to Joe Schmo on TikTok to like do this, and I was going to be a content creator in 10 days, and I was going to have 10,000 followers, and I don't. And then they get discouraged.
Yeah, like this is like overall, like possibly the easiest job
Oh my
on
God,
earth.
yeah.
But like it doesn't just start out easy, and it doesn't.
No.
It's not always easy, and
It
I
also
feel
just
like
depends on your content. Like,
yeah, because I feel like a lot of people like assume that it's just all rainbows and lollipops, but
Yeah.
it is like I feel like it's such a. I feel like I can't say it's a bad job, and I won't ever
It's
say that it
not,
is, but
no.
like every job has its things. Like you might be working your dream job that you went to college for, but you're still gonna have bad days or days that you're like, why did I do this as a career? And that's just normal.
yeah.
Um,
I
but
just
yeah.
feel like there's just I feel like everyone just needs to exist as their own person. And if you find inspiration in somebody else, I think that's fantastic. But I think it's just important to just have your own individual thing. And if you feel like at your job right now, it's not what you should be doing and you think that you amount for more, then I think you should go for it. But I don't think you should do that because someone's telling you that you will never be somebody if you don't quit your 9 to 5 right now, and that you need to like go take out a loan and like buy a house and be a content creator like in the next week. I think that should be a decision based on you with your own finances and like your own life.
Yeah, no, there's a
Yeah.
lot of good in a
Yeah.
9 to 5, and I
Yes.
would have never
So
said
much
that.
stability.
I would have never said that until, of course, now that we're doing this full time. So you really
Yeah.
just, like, the grass is always green on the other side. Like, you
Always.
have one thing on when you're doing the job you don't want to do, but you have all these good things, and then you do the job you want to do, but you don't have these things. Like, for one, health insurance. Like, we
Huge.
we follow a lot of we follow a couple of like Canadian creators, and like we're always like, oh, I
It's
wonder what
free.
they do for like health insurance, but it's just free for them. But we don't have that, and we both currently are uninsured. Just being
Yeah.
honest right now, and
It's scary.
that's like not good. And but it also, that's another thing, is like I get frustrated when I think about like when we do add that on, because it's like at least $400 a month to have health insurance, and like you have the health insurance but you're still paying money
Yeah.
for your care, and it's just like not right. But that's like a whole other topic. But yeah, when you are obviously are freelance, you don't have
You have to find ways
that.
for money for literally everything. Like everything. So there is beauty in a 9 to 5. There's a lot of people that feel like they can only do a 9 to 5 because they need stability. They want a paycheck that is the same every week. Whether you're sick or not, you get PTO, you get whatever. It's like if you're sick or you feel horrible about yourself and you don't want to be on camera, that's one day that you're missing out on money as a freelancer. Or if you cancel on a photography gig or whatever, now you're not getting that. And it's like, but if you just had PTO or whatever, you would have got paid for that. It would have been fine.
We've been having this thing too, not to go too far out of topic, but like we've been having this feeling where, because we've been so stressed about like whether we should get a job or not, like I know this sounds so silly, but like it's been actually taking up our entire days, and like we've been like applying to jobs like crazy and just like trying to find something that's either remote so we can still do this. Basically every job we apply for, we're thinking of how we can still incorporate content, because this is our number one goal, is to do
This
this.
is important to us. This is like our number one thing that we want to continue to do. So I don't ever want to just get something and then just shove this on the back burner. I think this is important to both of us.
It is. And where I was going with that is that like if you don't post for one day, like in your mind it's like not, that's, you're not making money for that day. But it's also like if you don't post for, even if you did post for that day, it doesn't guarantee you anything. And I think that's another problem, is that like at least when you go to your 9 to 5, you know you're always gonna get that paycheck no matter what. But like we can put in 12 hours of our day into this job and not make a cent from it.
But
And
also, people just like forget about people so easily because there are so many queer couples on TikTok that you can just be like, oh, well, this they don't really post much, so I can just go follow these 6,000 other people that look just like you, that live in the same city and like do the same exact things. And it's like, it's really important, like photographers, queer couples, individual people that do fashion videos. There are so many people that are doing exactly the same thing as you, that live literally down the street from you, that live in the same city, like have the same clothes, that they could just like unfollow you and go follow these other 5,000 copies of you.
Yeah.
And that's like a lot of pressure too as a creator, of just like always trying to improvise and try to do different things to stand out. But it's hard to like always stand out.
yeah, and it's
You
also
run
just
out of
not
things.
normal too. Like, you know, at your 9 to 5, you
Yeah.
just do your role and that's your role. You're not trying to
And
like
then you're done at 5.
outrun anybody,
Yeah.
but like in this job you have to like be on your
Yeah.
game and like be
Always be new.
Try
And
to be
that's
new,
hard.
try to look new, change your hair. That's what that person was talking about that you're watching in another podcast, is like she said she always feels like she has to like change her hair up and like buy new furniture to like keep things new. And it's just like it's such an abnormal job. And like, if
Yeah.
you are thinking of doing this or you feel like you're like less than because you're not a content creator, just know that like a lot of us, I think, like miss those aspects of working a regular
Yeah.
job because you have stability and like,
And routine is a huge thing that I
yeah.
think a lot of us creators lack because there's just so much gray area of just like, oh, okay, I did my work for the day, but now what do I do? It's nice to like go in at the same time every day at 8 or 9, and then you do your duties for the day, and then you're done at 5. You're not working at home anymore. You're just done. And then you do it again over and over and over again, and that sucks, but at least there's like a routine, because for some creators they're working at midnight and they're like editing a video and they're like posting all these different things, and like that's easy work, but it's also like, damn, I didn't really want to be working at midnight. Or like,
Yeah.
it's just hard.
Yeah.
But
This
I don't know.
is
I think it's really important to just recognize that you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and you could be starting to work for yourself at 30, you could start at 16, you could start at 60. My mom is 60, and she's trying to do it now. And
Yeah.
I think that's admirable. It's literally never too late. And I think it's also, just to end it, I think it's important to recognize that like what you see somebody doing right now, they literally might hate in 3 years. Kind of like Emma, how she's like done everything that she wanted
Yeah.
to do, and now it's just like, I don't really want to do this anymore, but this was all I put my mind and heart into, so now I don't really know what I even like, because I put so much energy into this one thing.
And you kind of have
And
to
now
make
I
it
don't
your
even-
personality to
Yeah.
like fully be in this kind of job.
Exactly. And there's so many people that have done the Europe trip 700 times and have done all this stuff, and it's like they might not even want to be a creator in 5 years. So
Another
I think
thing-
it's important.
Another thing that you always remind me is that like this creator that I'm comparing myself to might just be in their peak moment, and then in a couple
Yes.
weeks or a few months, like people are gonna forget about them and be on to
Yeah.
the next person. And
Yeah.
so this job is just like, it's almost like you, in a weird way, you're like a little toy, and you're like
Yes.
constantly trying to dangle yourself at people and like just hoping that people like you and
But I
that
think that's even
brands like
outside
you.
of doing this as a job, just like people that like to do this for fun, or just don't even post but just like want to scroll on things, and they just see all these people. Because like before, like this huge influencer thing, I used to do this with people like when I was in college or even in high school. I'd see people on like Turks and Caicos trips with their family, and I was just like, oh, like I don't have any plans for the summer. Like I wish
Yeah.
I was going on a family trip, but my family didn't have money for that trip or that summer. And I'm like, damn, now I'm comparing people like my classmates to myself.
Yeah.
So I think it's like
But I
not
feel
even
like-
just like creators, but it's also just like people that you literally go to school with.
I think the pressure though comes from like, I think we all like compare ourselves to people in our lives, but
Yeah.
then when you you log on to social media for fun, and then you see like people you don't even know just
Yeah.
constantly like in these different countries and stuff. I feel like it adds a whole nother layer of like, what am I supposed to be doing, and how
Yeah.
can I make the money that these people are making to go on these trips?
Especially if you feel unfulfilled in your life right now.
And another thing is like a lot of like creators that you see traveling are not even paying for those trips because they got invited,
Yeah.
and like that's a whole nother thing. But then like when you
Yeah.
are a creator, it becomes another
It's like,
thing
oh, you're not
where it's
getting
like,
invited.
well, why didn't we get invited to that? And it's
Yeah.
just like a constant comparing. So I really think the era we're on is just like being happy with where we are, because right now we're like where we've always wanted to be. So
Literally.
we just need to focus on that.
Yeah.
And like, because then you get so out of like your head when you
Yeah.
start thinking of other things. And
It's just unrealistic expectations that you're holding toward yourself when you don't even know what is happening and why that's happening. You might have like inklings of like, maybe this is happening because of this, but you don't actually know. And I think it's just important, like you said, with like the peaks. Like we had a peak in our career, and like now it's very slow, but we could have another peak. Like we're only 25, 26. Like
Yeah.
We could have a peak at the end of the year. We could have a peak next year, and the whole year is a peak. But it's just like, it's all relative. And I think it's just important to just remember that, like, you literally are where you're supposed to be. And I feel like it's so hard to like follow the things that you say, and I think it's so easy to just be like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be where I am, and then you like go on Instagram and it's just like, oh my god, like I'm not, like why am I at this job, why am I doing this, why
Yeah.
do I have this car, I should have more money, like. And I think like even outside of influencing, it's like you see these people that you went to school with that like are having families and are buying houses, and like you don't know if they leased the car or they bought the car, or you don't know if they like
But
had a trust fund, or like you just don't know. It's
yeah.
like it's obviously rude to ask those questions, but you're thinking them in your head like, okay, well, I went to college, I did all this stuff, we went to the same school, we grew up in the same city, like why do you have a house and I have no money for a house?
But it just also goes to show that like you can be in the same position as someone
Yeah.
making the same exact amount of money and be living completely different lives
Mm-hmm.
because how you got there is going to be different no matter who you are. Even if
Always.
it's your twin sister and you're doing the same job,
Mm-hmm.
same pay, like you got there different ways. You might have spent more money on school or different. You might have
Yeah.
had someone pay for your school.
Oh my
Like
God, yeah.
it's just you really just have to be present in what you where you are and what you have. And I think that's like the moral of today's episode
Yeah.
is just like realizing the things that you do have and less of what you don't have and
Yeah.
being just grateful for that.
Because life is long, but it's also very short. And you just don't know when your last day is. So if you spend every day just stressing about why you're not where you want to be because of someone else, that could have been your last time, you
Yeah.
know?
With that being said, this is the end of today's episode.
Yes.
I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this topic. We covered a lot in this
Yeah, we
episode.
did.
These things have been heavily on our minds recently. So if you relate to this as a creator or just as like a person doing a 9 to 5, we would love to just hear how you've been feeling because I feel like this has been a big thing in the world right now with
Yeah.
the social media stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have episodes every Wednesday, so we'll see you next week. You can also watch this podcast episode on our YouTube, Isabel and Tamera. But yeah, thank you for listening.
I love you guys.